All right, everyone. So, Greg Iverson here back, and I've got two guests today. To go along with a lot of what we've been talking about, other markets, finding other resources in real estate, particularly in the environment we're in right now, which this is coming up on the tail end of 2023. And, it's funny as we were talking, just about to go live with this, we're talking about it's a team sport right now, and a lot of our dedication here at Neighborhood Loans within our team is to help our investors and those that we're connected with help find other resources, whether it's for new properties or just somebody to talk through a property management question, things like that. That's the purpose for today. And fortunate to have Nick Weaver and Emily Nesselrod from 3Five Properties on, representing a few different areas around the country. And the way that we got in contact actually recently, a couple of our clients that we'd worked with for a long period of time selected 3Fives, and that's how they came on our radar. They were both discriminating clients, so I trust in their judgment, and that's what led us to where we're at today. So that being said, Emily, Nick, thanks a ton for coming on. What about a little bit? Well, first off, if you don't mind, and Emily, I think I forgot to ask you this initially, but I'm just curious what 3Five stands for, first off, if you're allowed to share that with me. And then following that, just a little bit about your company, where you all come from. I think it's super cool. It seems like a very family-oriented type of team, like what we operate here. So bring us up to speed. Who are you?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Greg. It's good to be here. We're excited for this. The 3Fives question normally is one we reserve to telling when we have a beer in front of us. So I'll be honest, this is best told over dinner. But kind of in a nutshell, and Nick, you can elaborate, but the gist of it is 5-star service, 5 out of 5. We aim for excellence in everything that we do. And there's 3 business partners. So Nick and I, and then Nick's brother Derek as well. So we are the 3Fives because we all strive for excellence in everything, and our goal is just to provide 5-star service in everything that we do. And we'll get to more details over a beer.
I love it. Well, that's awesome. That's good enough for me. Cool. All right, so you've got the 3 partners. So how did you get into the space? I'm always curious, like, did you wanting to be a real estate investor or by default?
I was working for a day job, and I had a colleague that asked me to be a witness for him during a signing when he was buying a property out of state. And so it spurred some more questions when I was the witness. He was buying in Georgia. I guess in Georgia, you need a witness with a notary. So I said, how do you feel comfortable buying these properties out of state? Did you fly out there to see it? Like how did this process take place? And he explained, it's actually a really safe asset class to invest in, out-of-state rental properties. You're going to get, I work with a realtor to find a property out here. I'll get an inspection when I find a property that I think could pencil. I'll also touch base with my property management team to see what they think the rent would be once I purchase the property. So I'll know what it rents for. Once we get the inspection, the inspector is going to tell more about this property than we would normally if we went to the property ourselves and try to look at the property. They're going to point out things that we would have missed. And then when we do get, during the financing process, it's going to get appraised. So you're going to know what the true value of this property is, even if it's out of state. You don't have to worry about is that really the true value of this property? And then, when you do close on this property, God forbid anything happens, but the house is going to be insured. So if it does catch on fire, your asset is actually insured. So it is actually, you have a lot more control over this asset class when you compare it to, like, if you invest in a Nike or a P&G through in the stock market, and then they say something to make half of their fan base mad at them, and then the stock plummets. So this is something you have more control over. And he also explained to me, I had a mentor, long story short, but he explained to me the 5 different ways that real estate pays. I'll actually let Emily just rattle those off real quick, because she's good control. I'm gonna put you on the spot. 5 ways that real estate people they usually only think about cash flow. And cash flow is a little rough right now with those higher interest rates. But there are other ways that investors usually don't realize that real estate pays until over a long period of time. And they go, whoa, I was only counting on cash flow, but there's all these other avenues on how real estate pays out. So Emily, putting you on the spot.
All right, see if I can
do
it.
Right. All right, Emily, you're on the clock. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I have to use the acronym in my head. Appreciation. So obviously every house is going to appreciate. That's why we all wish we bought all the real estate 10 years ago, because today we'd be, living on cloud nine. So they're always going to appreciate over time. Even if they go up and down, the market's going to go up and down, but long-term they're going to appreciate. D is debt pay down. So you've got a tenant paying down your mortgage for you. So you have a mortgage constantly decreasing on this property over the next 30 years. And that's not coming out of your pocket, it's coming out of your tenant's pocket. So your equity is increasing as that happens. I is inflation hedging, like hedging against inflation. So basically the money you are, buying this property for today, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, that money looks a whole lot different than it does now. Same as ask your parents what $100 bought them, when they were kids, or ask them what dinner cost. I mean, right now we can all agree 100 is the new 20. Like you take your family out to eat, and I have 3 kids. You're not getting out for less than $100 anywhere you go. So we've seen a ton of inflation lately, and that's a great example of the money you're using today to purchase that property is going to, be completely different when you sell it down the road.
Yep.
Where am I at? See, cash flow. Everyone knows cash flow. Like Nick said, it's not pretty right now. It will get better. Your rents are going to increase over time. That's going to help your cash flow. Your mortgage is going to stay the same. Your rents are going to go up. So big picture, your cash flows, going to become more part of the picture than it is today. But that's the easiest one for people to look at.
Big picture, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think we all feel strongly that rates will come down within the next year to 2 years. And when they do come down, we're all going to refinance, and all the lenders are going to be bombarded, but we're going to refinance everything in our portfolio that is 7% or higher. We're just going to take it all to our favorite lender and say, hey, get me that best rate.
And between myself and the two of you, that'll probably be when I ride out into the sunset, if things work out according to plan. So yes.
Nice.
All right, so cash flow, and then you had one other one.
One more is tax benefits. So there's all kinds of write-offs. If you have a good CPA, you hopefully aren't paying taxes on the income you're getting from your rental property, because there's so many different ways to write things off and factor in depreciation and accelerated depreciation and things like that.
I love it. So a couple of things you hit, and I'll just say that in summary real quick then. So you've got appreciation, debt pay down, inflation hedging, of course, cash flow, and tax benefits. A couple things, and back to what you said, Nick, first. I'm actually rewatching for probably the 30th time, but I absolutely love it. Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room. I don't know if you all have ever seen that movie. Please check it out. It's on Netflix again right now. The reason I bring it up, that's when I was in college and I was in business school, and I remember talking about rogue CEOs and, literally people's 401k. The saddest part about it is vanishing overnight, and they have no control over a bunch of greedy CEOs that are not being honest, and that has stuck with me throughout the whole thing. And Nick, to what you said, like having a tangible asset, yes, it requires property management. There's some other pieces involved with it, but there is something to me incredibly comforting in knowing that there is not a rogue CEO that can destroy that property. Now I can if I don't manage it properly or things like that, but I exercise some control over it, which I really, really like as the investor, plus plugging into networks of property managers and things like that have all of that expertise, Emily, you nailed something with it real quick, though, also that, and we're talking more and more about it in our office right now, is yes, what are the true benefits of buying real estate? And it's very relevant right now because, back to Nick's point, cash flow is not potentially what it was. Now, I will say, and this is, from someone that's, bought and sold hundreds of homes, started doing it back in 2005, probably, where the money is made, in my opinion, and there's certainly other pillars involved, but it's through that appreciation, which Emily, you hit first. That's the piece that it's kind of that pie in the sky and you don't know exactly what it's going to be. But when I look at it, if my cash flow carries the investment, I'm not digging into my pocket. Maybe I'm, taking a little bit home now and then. It's still doing its job, as that asset's growing and the principal is being paid down. I'm creating all that net worth and that equity without paying a tax bill every single year. And it just snowballs over time to where, you have a number of properties and the debt pay down alone is a significant. I remember looking at it. It's probably been 10 years or so when my wife and I first started working together on it, looking at it and saying, hey, if everything else goes bad, I'm still paying these loans down by about $100,000 a year. So that effectively I'm making about $100,000 a year just paying down these loans, And so I'm glad you mentioned those because I think that many investors really focus a lot just on the cash flow. And I think some are missing the boat, honestly. I don't think that's the piece that really tips it over and makes it such a good investment, honestly. So, so thanks for mentioning that. So talk to me a little bit about the markets you work in. Maybe just some high level characteristics. I just want to expose those markets to our audience, to maybe ones that have only focused on a particular market that are now starting to look to branch out a little bit.
Let me close my story real quick.
Yeah.
So after Peter shared that with me, I said, how do I get started? And he said, listen to this podcast. So he had me listen to Keith Weinhold, the Get Rich Education podcast number 6. So that's the most talked about, or probably the one podcast I've listened to majority of all of his podcasts, but that's the one that most people say changed their life and changed their thought process. But basically he broke it down that, this isn't your parents' market anymore. You need to go get a HELOC on your house, pull the equity on your house, and utilize that equity to buy rental properties. So that's how I got started. And so my first property, I bought it in Hampton, Georgia. It's about 45 minutes south of Atlanta. I bought it for $125,000. It rented for, I want to say, $1,075 when I first bought it. It looked beautiful. I fell in love with it. I got the property inspection back. The roof had a few years left on it. HVAC had a few years left on it. Water heater had a few years left on it. It had a washer and dryer, a Bosch washer and dryer. I was so excited. They looked cool. Well, I soon learned a lot about that first property. I replaced the roof in the first 3 years. I replaced the HVAC in the first 5 years. That Bosch washer and dryer cost me a lot of money with my very first tenant because it was written up in the lease and they broke down. So I learned a lot by cutting my teeth on a non-turnkey property. So I learned to really pay attention to the capital expenditures, the roofs, the HVAC, the water heater. I'm not going to rent a house with a washer and dryer involved. I don't even rent my houses with refrigerators. And I know that can be a debatable topic, but I don't want to be in the appliance business. So I've learned, and I manage all my own properties. I've created a team to manage in the markets that we're in, that we're most developed in. So the market we are most proud of is Montgomery, Alabama. And I kind of fell onto that market after investing in Georgia, and Georgia was getting really hot. So I asked my lender at the time, where else should I be investing? He said, you might want to check out this market. And within the first year in 2017 that I started investing, I bought a couple properties in Montgomery, Alabama. The property taxes are ridiculously low. That's why we really love it. It's a red state. You're talking property tax. I have property taxes as low as $300 a year. And on average, probably around $600 to $700 a year, where my Georgia properties are now, we're talking property taxes of $3,600 a year. Now that house that I first bought for 125 grand in 2017 is worth $260 now. And my rent, I'm getting $1,800 a month now. So it was still a good buy. I learned the hard way to look at the capital expenditures. But now in Montgomery, rents have gone up as well. I bought for cash flow at the time. All the properties I bought, the values have gone up, but that market still does cash flow because the taxes are low. Insurance is fair. Annual insurance premium with State Farm is around $600 to $800 a year. and you're getting good purchase to rent ratio in these markets. So we're selling houses on average, we could every once in a while we get a house in the low 100s that rents for $1,000 a month. On average, our houses are 150 to 170,000 that are rented for 13 to 1400 a month, and with really low taxes and really low insurance. So it's just the perfect storm for cash flow, and we've kind of got that market figured out. We're running the property management out there. We have a project manager. We've got maintenance technicians. We're doing we're constantly buying distressed homes and rehabbing them for our funnel of future turnkey properties. So we got a good amount of maintenance techs actually on our payroll that we pay out every week. So I also learned the hard way, when you hire a contractor, I've been taken advantage of by trying to hire a contractor. They get the job 90% there, and then you're trying to get them to come back to get the other 10% done, but they've moved on to their next project. So then you got to bring someone else in, which is someone who's going to be the finisher, and finishing's the hardest part because that's what takes the most finesse. And so we've learned all this, and so we've built internal teams. So our internal teams can basically we manage Montgomery, Alabama. We've got properties in Birmingham, Alabama, all the suburbs of that area, Columbus, Georgia, Mobile, Alabama. So those are markets that we actually control internally, that we've got the help to manage all those properties. And then we also branched out, and we purchased properties in Little Rock, Arkansas. We've partnered with people in those markets to oversee the rehabs. And then we've got big property management companies that are well known, that have that are very trustworthy, that we've partnered with in Little Rock, Arkansas, or Hopkinsville, Kentucky is another market we're in. Help me out here, Emily. What other markets are we?
Jackson, Mississippi, got one in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I love it. So safe to say you bought the first one in Montgomery for cash, or that was in Georgia, I guess. But you bought it for cash flow, and it's more than doubled in value in 6 years.
I was just showing Emily last night. We were going over some different all of the properties we have and next stages, and we looked at, I said, look at these houses I first bought, and like that house went to 260. I bought a house for 120 with the very next month. That house is worth 240. I bought my first two Alabama houses for 59,900. They're both worth about 120 now. And so that's the power of real estate. 5 years later, they've doubled in value, and I've been getting cash flow all along, which has been great. But that's just, you hope for the appreciation, but you really just don't know how it's going to play out. We all think we have an idea, but we really don't. You just have to hold on to them for a while and see what happens.
That's the beauty of it. I'm convinced if you hold them long enough, it's going to work out. Like I started buying a lot in 08, and they didn't appreciate like I had planned in the beginning. But I can tell you, just holding on to them, and what might have been a 2, 3, 4 year plan became an 8-year plan. But to your point, a lot of those were bought in the 40, 50, 60,000 range that have gone on to become worth 150,000. And you look at that over time, and you're growing your net worth and not incurring a tax bill each time. And I think there's a lot of things I love about real estate, but that is definitely a big one,
Yeah.
And I think about that, and I guess just to talk about your first example real quick. So safe to say, if you pay $125,000 for a house, let's just say your out of pocket is $25,000, $30,000. So you basically took $25,000 to $30,000. And if that property is worth 270 plus or minus today, what's that? 145,000. So your $25,000 to $30,000 investment has brought you back $140,000 in 6 years. I mean, that's just that's crazy, and it's unheard of. And when I compare that to the stock market, I mean, we could line it up side by side all day long. I can promise you, you already know this, so I don't need to promise you, but 25 to 30,000, you put that away, it earns 10% in the S&P 500 over a 6-year period. It's not $140,000. We know that,
Yeah.
you know, which is the beauty of, ironically, which is what I do, you know, the beauty of leverage and the ability to borrow on real estate, which you can in the stock market. It's not nearly as simple. Yeah, it gets exponentially more complicated, but another one of the beauties of real estate. So I've obviously taken a lot of your time. What else would you want others to know about? I mean, I think we've figured out that Montgomery is probably your favorite. I will say all of the markets you mentioned that we've operated in are all what I would consider great markets for turnkey. You know, we talked about the value of turnkey, which I couldn't agree with you more. You know, it's I get the question every now and then, why would I pay the turnkey company this price when I can do it all myself? And Nick, you hit the nail on the head, because
I've lost a lot of money
around there. You can run afoul with contractors, property man. I mean, it just, the list goes on and on. There's so much value there.
Yeah, I would say also, Greg, you know, to us, what does turnkey mean? Turnkey means something different to everyone. So through cutting my teeth and figuring out what's most important for a rental property is, you know, when it's a rental property, don't always need to have granite cabinets, countertops. That's a nice to have. It's not a gotta have. But what's we think is sexy is a roof that's got over 10 years life left, an HVAC that is 8 years old or newer, water heater that's 8 years old or newer. We don't do carpet in any of our properties, because when you have a tenant turnover, we don't want to have to replace carpet or have to even worry about cleaning it. So we're either sanding and polishing the existing hardwoods, or we're doing vinyl plank floors. I've really tried to pride myself in people proofing my properties and trying to get these properties to have the least amount of maintenance required on them. So we don't do blinds in our property. When a tenant turns over, we don't have to spend $300 out of their deposit to replace blinds. We're not, you know, for anything under $1,500 a month, we're not going to do a dishwasher. We're not going to do a garbage disposal. Those are all things that cost the owners money over time. And I've learned the hard way. My first property, I've learned a lot about the washer and the dryer, the Samsung refrigerator that it came with that gets worked on every 6 months. So you learn these little, you know, side money eaters with cash flow when you have these rental properties. So I've learned to, you know, hey, if you need a fridge, I can help you find one for a few $100, but I'm not going to be on the hook. And this has happened to me. I've received a phone call on Thanksgiving Day. My fridge is broke. Please help. I need a fridge. Like, it's Thanksgiving Day. What am I going to be able to do?
Right.
So we try to, you know, I pride myself in really cutting out those potential cash flow killers for all my owners' properties and my own properties. And you know what? It doesn't, I can rent properties within, you know, 30 to 60 days, just like anybody else. The rest of the properties, you know, we use the gray, like the back of my house, whether it's agreeable gray or alpaca. These any tenants that walk in these houses, they fall in love with them because they look great aesthetically. And then we make sure that, you know, the roofs are sound, the HVAC's working properly. You know, we're got all those capital expenditures taken care of for the owners, and it helps the tenants long term as well.
I love it. And agreeable gray, by the way, is my pick too. So you've got good taste, man. That's
works. It just works.
Yeah. But no, I agree, and I think it's you know, important to always note in that turnkey concept that it's the you know, the property management. I think having that support, but I mean, you nailed it. Everything you just described, those are were our biggest costs. I mean, I remember the garbage disposal conversation way back, and finally, after doing so many of them, embarrassingly a lot of them, I finally said, I don't have a garbage disposal. Why is it necessary? You know, and just little things like that a new investor, and when I was a new investor, I knew no different. I cost myself a lot of money by not having somebody like you all to plug into and say, hey, no, don't ever do that. That makes no sense. You don't need to do it. dishwasher being the same thing, and I've made the same mistake on appliances that washer, dryer, and refrigerator that you have, thinking I'm doing a favor, and then ultimately it becomes my burden, and it's not necessary. Most have their own washer and dryer anyway, and oftentimes their own refrigerator as well. So, well, super cool. Well, I appreciate the info both on 3Fives, but on the markets where you're at. Obviously, Montgomery seems to be the big pick right now, which is great. I don't know a ton about the market, and I don't have a lot of contacts in those markets. So hopefully that'll be an appealing one for our clients. But is there anything else in summary that you all would want to mention?
Emily, you want to rattle off what's the economy look like in Montgomery?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So just kind of bird's eye view. We like Montgomery. It's kind of a secondary market. It's not super sexy. It's not on any hot lists or anything, but we like to fly under the radar with a solid, stable market. And like Nick mentioned before, what we look for in any market is rent to price ratio being strong. So, even with these rates right now, hopefully you're breaking even or getting a little bit of cash flow. Low taxes, which Montgomery is, been school now on that. And then landlord-friendly laws. So all of our markets have all those three things. Montgomery itself, it's the state capital, so you have a lot of municipal employees and that kind of thing. Population's around 200,000. There are a lot of suburbs of Montgomery too, in the metro area, which we actually have a lot of luck in. So you may not recognize the name, but when you're looking at our inventory, we can let you know which ones those are. But they're a little bit more spread out feel to the inner city stuff. The schools are a little bit better. So we do well in the suburbs too, that are just outside and commutable from Montgomery. As far as industry, Montgomery has a lot of auto manufacturing. They've got a big Hyundai plant, I think Kia and Mercedes are both in the vicinity. There's 7 colleges within Montgomery. There's a huge health system, Baptist Health. So that's kind of the economic drivers are
military bases as well.
Military base, that's right.
Yeah.
There's a military base there. There's a Amazon. It's related to distribution. It's a certain kind of warehouse. It's one of a few of its kind
that's coming soon.
Into Montgomery as well.
So lots of jobs.
Yep.
Yep.
And a solid rental population too. I want to say 40-something% of the houses are occupied by renters. So strong rental base for sure.
Yep.
That's huge. I love it. Well, we'll spread the word on Montgomery, because pretty much everything you described is works well for rental, and it seems like it flies under radar. And some of the feedback we get on more, I guess, what I would consider kind of the bread and butter markets that we are always operating in. A lot of the concern we hear is, is it saturated? Is it too late? Has everybody already discovered it? And whether I agree or not with that's a realistic concern, and I think finding some of those other markets where they're big enough, or there's a company like yours operating there that has the management in place, things like that. But they're not being gobbled up and prices being pushed up to make it where you can't even afford to buy them. Potentially like some other markets may be getting, or may get to that place. Particularly if interest rates stay a little bit higher, which conversation for another day. Hopefully it does not happen, but we shall see. Well, guys, I appreciate your time a ton. Like I said, just from working together here recently, it was a pleasure, and we would love the opportunity to introduce you to some of the investment clients we've had for a long time that are looking for other places, other providers, people that we can trust. And at the end of the day, it's a small community, I think, even though it's national and there are plenty of players out there. I think at the same time, it is a relatively small community when it comes to turnkey, when it comes to the investors that are operating in that space. And so I think it always makes sense to know each other and, expose clients to other markets and other operators. So
we appreciate that. With
that, thanks a ton. And I have to tell you, Nick, before we jump, podcast number 6, Keith Weinhold. I'm going to check
it out. It's changing. It changed my life.
I mean, I feel like he's on like
Yeah.
200 and something now. So this is super old school, which
Yep.
is
Yeah.
exciting. I'm gonna check it out. So
Yeah, I think
guys,
it still holds though, a lot, especially for a lot of investors that are sitting on equity in their homes. There's a quick analogy. Let's say you have a half a glass of water, and the water that's there is the equity in your home, and you take 4 other glasses, and then you pour that water amongst the 4 other glasses. Did you lose your equity? No, you just diversified it amongst 4 other properties. And now those properties are going to rise in value over time instead of just your one property. It's pretty amazing.
yeah, and the beauty of leverage as well. Yeah, help you to do that. Well, guys, thank you again. I appreciate it. We will include your contact information along with this so that people can reach out to you, and hopefully we'll be working a whole bunch together here soon.
Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. We love working with you.
Likewise, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.